cruel sister B-lied me for being childless at family gatherings. She smirked, maybe you should babysit to feel useful, so I exposed her secret affair with her neighbor's husband at Thanksgiving dinner. At last Thanksgiving, my sister Brielle smirked at me while sipping her wine and said, maybe you should babysit the kids more. You know, to feel useful, since you don't have your own. I smiled back for once and said, actually, I think you have enough going on already. She laughed, thinking I was being self-deprecating. Then I pulled out the envelope I had hidden in my bag. A few seconds later, her world exploded, and I don't regret it. For as long as I can remember, Brielle and I have been different. I'm Melanie, 39 years old, married to my husband Trevor for over a decade. We live in a quiet suburb just outside Des Moines, Iowa, surrounded by fields and long stretches of highways that seem to go on forever. We met young, married young, and spent years building a calm, steady life together. We tried for kids for a long time. Miscarriages, heartbreak, endless doctor's appointments where I sat in cold rooms clutching paperwork with words I didn't want to read, unexplained infertility. Eventually, we made peace with the fact that it just wasn't going to happen for us. Trevor was endlessly supportive. I told myself family is what you make it, and we made a beautiful, if quieter, life. Meanwhile, Brielle, my younger sister by 4 years, seemed to waltz through life untouched. She married her high school boyfriend, Cody, the kind of guy who mowed his lawn shirtless every Saturday and called everyone buddy. They had 3 kids in quick succession and built the life I had once dreamed of: big house, big family, non-stop noise, and chaos and purpose. And honestly, I was happy for her. At first. But over time, family gatherings started feeling like a battleground. It wasn't enough that Brielle had the life everyone celebrated, she needed to rub it in. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday, or summer barbecue turned into a showcase for her kids. And a subtle humiliation for me. It started small. You'll get it one day when you have kids, she'd say when I looked overwhelmed by the shrieking toddlers. Then, maybe you're too career-focused. Kids change your priorities. Later, it sharpened. Some people just aren't meant to be moms, and that's okay, she said once while pouring herself another mimosa at Easter brunch, as if offering me a blessing. Our parents, Norma and Dennis, would smile awkwardly and quickly change the subject. Cody usually said nothing, too focused on managing the little ones. My other relatives would glance away, pretending not to hear. I endured it with tight smiles and excuses to check on the food or help clean up. It got worse after my dad retired. With more free time, family events multiplied. And at every one, Brielle found a new way to jab at my open wound. She became the loud, laughing voice in every room, the mother, the nurturer, the favorite. Meanwhile, I became background. Thanksgiving last year was when everything boiled over. The house was packed. My parents' split level in West Des Moines barely fit all of us anymore, but somehow we squeezed in, folding tables in the living room, kids running amok, relatives crammed into every corner. The smell of turkey and casseroles filled the air, but so did something sharper: tension. I had brought my usual green bean casserole, my small contribution to a celebration that no one expected much from me at. I slipped into the kitchen early to help Mom arrange dishes. When Brielle arrived, late as usual, she swept into the room like a reality show star, kissing cheeks, handing out hostess gifts, laughing too loud. She wore a designer coat that still had the boutique tags dangling under the sleeve. At some point, when most of the adults were gathered in the living room balancing wine glasses and paper plates, Brielle zeroed in on me. She tilted her head, giving me that sugary sweet smile she reserved for special humiliations. Maybe you should babysit the kids more, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Might help you feel useful, you know. Since you don't have your own. There was a brittle chuckle from my aunt, but mostly an awful, awkward silence. I set down my plate carefully, feeling my hand tremble slightly. Trevor caught my eye from across the room. I could see the silent question there. Now? I nodded. I smiled at Brielle and said, actually, Brielle, I think you've got plenty going on already. She laughed, flipping her hair. She thought I was making a self-deprecating joke again. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Calmly, I walked to the coffee table, placed it down, and opened it. The first thing everyone saw were the photos. Brielle. And Doug. Her married neighbor. Photos of them meeting in parking lots, slipping into motels together, kissing in the shadows like bad actors in a high school play. I had dates, times, and text screenshots. April, Doug's wife and someone I knew from back in high school, had given me everything after she confided in me one afternoon at the grocery store. April hadn't known what to do yet, but when I explained what Brielle had been doing to me for years, she gave me permission. The room was so silent, I could hear the football game commentators whispering from the TV. Cody stepped forward first, confused. "What is this?" he asked, flipping through the pages. When he got to the messages, the explicit, gross messages, his face turned the kind of red that only comes from the deepest betrayal. "Tell me this isn't true," he said to Brielle. Brielle looked frozen. Pale. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. April, who I had quietly invited to Thanksgiving under the pretense of catching up, stepped forward then. She had been standing near the door, quietly watching. "It's true," April said simply. Cody looked like he had been punched. My mother gasped. My dad muttered "God damn it" under his breath and sat heavily in his recliner. The kids were thankfully still downstairs, unaware. Brielle finally found her voice. She screamed that it wasn't true, that I had faked the evidence, that April was lying. Her voice shrieked through the room like a badly tuned violin. No one believed her. No one defended her. The golden girl had finally tripped over her own crown. The aftermath wasn't pretty. Cody packed a bag that night. He took the kids and left, while Brielle sobbed on the couch, begging him to stay. My parents tried to control the damage, calling family members, blaming stress, suggesting therapy, but it was too late. By Christmas, Brielle was living alone in a small rented duplex in Clive, still insisting it was all lies to anyone who would listen. Most people stopped listening. Cody filed for divorce before New Year's. Doug's marriage with April also officially imploded. April, to her credit, moved on quickly. She even started dating someone new by spring, someone who treated her with the kindness she had deserved all along. As for me? For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a background character at family gatherings. Trevor and I traveled more. We fostered a sweet old beagle from a shelter in Urbandale and ended up adopting him. We built new traditions that didn't revolve around forced family drama or passive-aggressive wine-soaked comments. Brielle tried reaching out once, an email that was less apology and more pity party. She blamed me for her life unraveling. She said I had destroyed the family. I deleted it without responding. Maybe I did destroy the image of the perfect family. Maybe it needed to be destroyed. Because family isn't about pretending everything is fine while your wounds fester. It's about respect. About love. About not kicking people when they're already hurting. Brielle never understood that. She thought her children, her marriage, her shiny life gave her moral superiority. Turns out, rotten foundations eventually collapse, even the ones that look picture perfect from the outside. After the fallout, the months that followed felt strange. The absence of Brielle at family events was a silence you could almost hear, a gaping hole where her loud laughter and commanding presence used to be. It was strange how fast people adjusted once the initial shock wore off. My parents still mentioned her sometimes, usually in tight, guilty tones, but no one dared suggest inviting her to anything. At Easter, I caught my mom dabbing her eyes in the kitchen while icing cupcakes for the grandkids. She didn't say anything about Brielle, but I knew what she was thinking. She missed her daughter, the image of who Brielle had been, not the messy reality. For me, Easter felt peaceful. No snide comments about my wasted maternal instincts. No being shoved into babysitting duty while everyone else drank wine and took selfies. I spent most of that day actually having real conversations, with my cousins, with Trevor, even with Cody, who was slowly stitching his life back together one day at a time. Cody looked rough those first few months. Hollowed out, tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his movements had that heavy, mechanical quality of someone surviving rather than living. At one point, during a lull in the afternoon chaos of egg hunts and chocolate-stained toddlers, I found myself sitting next to him on the patio. We both stared out over the backyard, the trees just starting to bud with new green. He said quietly, without looking at me, "Thank you, Mel." I blinked. It was the first time anyone had really said that aloud. "I'm sorry it had to come out the way it did," I said, "because what else do you say when your actions blew up someone else's entire world?" He shrugged. "Better to know. Better than wasting another 10 years. Then he added, after a long pause, "I wish I'd seen her for who she really was." There wasn't much to say to that either. Sometimes love blinds you so thoroughly you can't even see the cracks forming until everything collapses around you. Summer came in a slow, sticky wave. The air thick with humidity, thunderstorms rolling in like clockwork every other night. Trevor and I took advantage of the quieter family calendar. We did things we hadn't done in years. We drove down to Kansas City for a long weekend, explored art museums, ate way too much barbecue, stayed up late drinking cheap wine on hotel balconies. We weren't the couple without kids anymore, we were just us again. Melanie and Trevor. Whole and enough. Meanwhile, bits and pieces about Brielle's new life trickled through the family grapevine. She was struggling. Financially, emotionally. Without Cody's steady income and with 3 kids to support, reality hit hard. She'd picked up a job at a local boutique, selling overpriced handbags to women who probably gossiped about her when she turned her back. I should have felt something: pity, anger, schadenfreude. But mostly, I felt nothing. A kind of distant sadness for the whole mess. There were rumors that Brielle tried dating again. A few flings, mostly guys who liked the idea of a single mom until reality set in. None of it lasted. Her relationship with the kids also shifted. Cody had primary custody. Brielle saw them on weekends, but the visits grew strained. Kids are smarter than adults give them credit for. They can sense when something isn't right, even if they don't have the words for it yet. One Saturday in July, I bumped into Cody and the kids at the downtown farmers market. I was wandering the stalls looking at homemade jams when I heard a familiar voice. Aunt Mel. Little Annie, Brielle's youngest, came barreling toward me, arms wide open. I bent down, scooping her up, heart aching. Her tiny arms wrapped around my neck so tightly, I almost teared up right there between the fresh tomatoes and kettle corn. Cody approached more slowly, a tentative smile on his face. We chatted for a few minutes about mundane things: the weather, a new splash park opening up, Trevor's promotion at work. It was easy, natural, a stark contrast to how family interactions used to feel. Before they left, Cody looked at me seriously. "They still ask about you, you know," he said. "You're still their aunt. Always will be." That moment meant more to me than I think he realized. Because no matter what Brielle had tried to paint me as, useless, broken, lesser, I wasn't any of those things. I wasn't defined by whether or not I had my own children. I wasn't defined by Brielle's petty cruelties. I was Melanie. Aunt Mel. The woman who stood up when no one else did. As fall crept closer, the whispers about Thanksgiving started up again. Who was hosting? Would Brielle be invited this year? My mother brought it up during a phone call one evening in early October. Her voice was careful, like she was stepping over thin ice. "Your father and I were thinking. Maybe we should just have something small. Immediate family only. Keep things simple." I knew what she was asking without her having to say it. "You mean without Brielle?" I said bluntly. There was a long pause. "We just want a peaceful holiday, Mel. After everything. People are still healing." Healing. A funny word for wounds that still felt fresh for some, festering for others. I told her I'd think about it. After I hung up, Trevor found me standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the dusky backyard, lost in thought. "You okay?" he asked gently. I shrugged. "Part of me feels like I should forgive her," I admitted. "But the other part, the bigger part, just doesn't want to pretend anymore." He nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. "You don't owe her anything, Mel," he said quietly. "You never did. And that's where I am now. Standing at the edge of another family holiday, wondering what the right move is. Do I show up and play nice for the sake of appearances? Do I set boundaries and stick to them, even if it causes more fractures? Part of me knows what the good daughter would do, what the peacemaker Melanie of a few years ago would have done. But I'm not sure I'm her anymore. And honestly, I'm not sure that's a bad thing." November crept up faster than I expected. The air got colder, the days shorter. The grocery stores started putting out their holiday displays: cranberry sauce pyramids, paper turkeys, cheap folding tables stacked near the registers. Everything about the season was the same. Except nothing really was. There was a low-level tension running underneath every family text thread. My mother, ever the diplomat, kept phrasing it as just a low-key holiday this year, but everyone knew why. Cody wasn't saying much. He answered texts politely but didn't volunteer anything. Even my usually oblivious Uncle Dean picked up on it, replying, "Is Brielle coming or not?" in the group chat. No one responded. The silence answered for us. A week before Thanksgiving, Mom called again. This time, her voice was more brittle. I could hear her fiddling with something, probably her wedding ring, which she always spun around her finger when she was nervous. "We'd really like you and Trevor to come," she said. It's important. Especially after last year." I understood the unspoken part. They needed me there to help fill the gap Brielle left behind. To make things look a little less broken. I agreed, but something inside me tensed. I wasn't doing this to smooth things over anymore. I wasn't going to be anyone's backup plan. I was going for me. For Trevor. For the family that was still worth showing up for. Thanksgiving morning was cold and bright. A sharp wind rattled the bare branches outside our window. I sipped coffee slowly, watching as Trevor loaded the green bean casserole into the back seat, along with a pumpkin pie we picked up from a local bakery. The drive to my parents' house was quiet. No music, just the hum of the tires against the pavement. When we pulled into the familiar driveway, I felt that old pang of childhood, the anticipation of a holiday, of seeing family, but it was laced with a new, harder edge now. Inside, things looked normal at first glance. The same cheesy cornucopia centerpiece on the dining table. The same half-decorated Christmas tree Mom always started too early. The smell of turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce thick in the air. But the energy was different. Softer. Quieter. Like everyone was moving a little more carefully, trying not to jostle the fragile New Balance. Cody was already there with the kids. Annie ran up to me again, throwing her arms around my waist, babbling about her new backpack. The boys, now old enough to pretend they were too cool for hugs, gave me shy smiles from the couch where they were engrossed in some video game. Cody nodded at me, a real, if small, smile on his face. I returned it. Trevor went off to help Dad carve the turkey. I slipped into the kitchen to check on Mom, who was fussing with the gravy. She looked up when I entered, her expression crumpling slightly. "Thank you for coming," she said, almost a whisper. Then, before I could react, she pulled me into a tight hug. It was strange being needed this way. Not as a babysitter. Not as the childless sister to pity or prod. But as someone solid. Someone who stayed. Dinner itself went smoothly, considering. There were the usual squabbles about politics and football, but they felt almost comforting in their normalcy. No knives disguised as jokes. No laughing at my expense. At one point, as I was helping clear plates, my mom leaned over and murmured, "I'm proud of you, you know." I almost dropped the stack of dishes. Proud? After everything, it was the last thing I expected to hear. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and kept moving, heart pounding strangely in my chest. The only real hiccup came later in the evening, after dessert. The adults had migrated to the living room, coffee cups balanced precariously on knees, kids sprawled out on the floor with coloring books. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. In that instant, it was like we all collectively knew. Mom's face was drained of color. Dad muttered something under his breath and shoved himself out of the recliner. Cody stiffened visibly next to the fireplace. I stood rooted to the spot as Dad walked slowly to the door and opened it. And there she was. Brielle. She looked different. Thinner. Hair pulled into a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes that no makeup could hide. She held a pumpkin pie in both hands like a peace offering. "Hey," she said weakly. I thought. Maybe I could just drop this off. I didn't want to intrude. The awkwardness was suffocating. No one moved. No one said anything. Mom was the first to speak. "You should have called," she said quietly, her voice tight. Brielle's eyes flickered past her, to me, to Cody, to the kids who had stopped coloring and were staring, wide-eyed. Cody stepped forward a little, placing himself subtly between her and the kids. His face was a careful blank. Brielle swallowed hard. "I just wanted to see them," she whispered. "I miss them." No one said she couldn't. But no one said she could, either. The silence stretched long and painful. Finally, Dad cleared his throat and said, "Maybe another time, Brielle." It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was just final. Brielle's face crumpled, but she caught herself. Straightened her shoulders. She set the pie down carefully on the porch, like someone laying flowers on a grave, and backed away. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said to no one in particular. Then she turned and walked down the steps, her head bowed against the wind. Dad closed the door slowly. No one spoke for a long time. Mom picked up her coffee and took a shaky sip, staring into the middle distance like she wasn't really seeing the room. The kids went back to their coloring, sensing something big had happened but not quite understanding. Cody sat back down without a word. Trevor came over and quietly slipped his hand into mine. And I stood there, feeling 100 emotions at once. Sadness. Relief. Guilt. Strength. The family had broken, but maybe. Just maybe. It was starting to rebuild. Not in the way it was before. Not pretending. But real. The door clicked shut behind Brielle, and that was it. She was gone. Thanksgiving carried on, though it felt like we were all slightly dazed. The food was eaten, the leftovers packed into mismatched Tupperware, the kids sent home with extra slices of pie. By the time Trevor and I left, the sky had darkened into a thick navy blue, the air crisp and sharp against our cheeks. Driving home, Trevor reached over and gave my hand a squeeze. "You did good today," he said softly. I squeezed back but didn't answer. There was a weight inside me, not sadness exactly, but something heavier, something final. The end of a chapter I'd been stuck in for years. The weeks after Thanksgiving were oddly peaceful. Brielle didn't reach out again. There were no dramatic texts, no desperate voicemails. She stayed quiet. Christmas approached, and for the first time in years, it was small. Intimate. Trevor and I hosted Christmas Eve at our house, something we'd never done before. Mom and Dad came, carrying a big crockpot of chili. Cody and the kids showed up, the boys in matching sweaters, Annie in a sparkly red dress. There was laughter. Real laughter. No biting remarks, no tension, no need for anyone to play a role they didn't fit into anymore. Mom got a little tipsy on Bailey's in her coffee and cried during Silent Night. Dad helped the boys build a giant Lego set on the living room floor. Trevor and I sat curled up on the couch, watching it all with a feeling I hadn't realized I missed: belonging. Brielle's absence wasn't discussed directly. It was just Understood. And honestly, it felt like the first real Christmas in a long time. Spring bloomed, cautious at first, then all at once. Trevor and I were outside more, working on the garden, taking long walks with Max, our beagle, around the neighborhood. Life started feeling easy again, like putting on an old favorite sweater you forgot you loved. Meanwhile, little updates about Brielle continued to trickle in through the family grapevine. She moved again, this time into an even smaller apartment on the other side of town. Lost her job at the boutique after some kind of misunderstanding involving the register. Started dating a guy 10 years younger who, according to Mom's very filtered reports, didn't seem serious. The kids grew distant from her. Not because Cody poisoned them against her, he was too good a man for that, but because kids recognize who shows up and who doesn't. Brielle's visitation weekends got more and more sporadic until eventually, they just stopped. She became a ghost in her own children's lives. A cautionary tale. And me? I was there. Every birthday party. Every soccer game. Every scraped knee and first lost tooth. Annie called me her bonus mom once, when she thought I couldn't hear. I cried in the car afterward. The final piece of my quiet revenge slid into place the following summer. It was the day Cody remarried. He didn't rush into it. He dated slowly, cautiously. But eventually, he met someone wonderful, Paige, a woman with kind eyes and a patience that seemed limitless. The kids loved her immediately. The wedding was small, in a pretty park just outside West Des Moines, the grass bright green, the sky wide and open above us. Trevor and I sat in the second row. I held a sleepy Annie in my lap while the boys jostled each other quietly next to Trevor. Cody stood at the front, looking happier, healthier than I had seen him in years. When Paige walked down the aisle, radiant and laughing, Cody's face crumpled with emotion. He wasn't just marrying her. He was reclaiming a life that Brielle had tried to destroy. During the reception, while the kids danced barefoot in the grass and Trevor sipped a beer with Cody's brothers, Mom came to sit next to me at a picnic table. She was quiet for a long time, picking at the label on her water bottle. Finally, she said, "You know, sometimes I think we got it wrong, Mel." I looked at her, unsure what she meant. "We thought the loud ones were the strong ones," she continued, staring out at the dance floor where the kids were spinning and laughing. "But it's the quiet ones who hold everything together." I didn't know what to say. So I just reached over and took her hand. She squeezed it back. And Brielle? I saw her once after that. At a gas station, of all places, early one morning. She was filling up her battered old car, wearing a hoodie pulled up over her head. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just pretended not to. For a moment, I stood there, coffee in hand, watching her. She looked small. Tired. Not the glittering, perfect sister who used to command every room. Just a woman weighed down by the consequences of her own choices. I thought I would feel triumph. Or anger. Or even pity. But I didn't feel any of those things. I felt free. Truly free. Brielle spent years trying to make me feel invisible. Unworthy. Broken. But in the end, she's the one who disappeared. And I stayed. I thrived. I became the family she tried so hard to convince me I didn't deserve to be a part of. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.